Good evening, everyone. Last night, as Sabina mentioned, I did a presentation on the man behind his flag. And what this was a bit of background leading up to this. This is a long walk that I'm going to be going on, starting on Saturday on the west coast. And I'm going to walk east as far as possible, or to Cape Spear in Newfoundland, whatever comes first. If my legs give out, I maybe won't, but this is my intention. So this, as I explained last night, this began with a dream. It turned into a very strong desire, and then eventually it turned into action, or as now I would call it, activism. Now, tonight I want to talk about a little bit about that activism, because the activism ended in the desire to promote freedom, because I realized that freedom is something that all sentient beings want. I remember years ago, I was a little bit of a sadistic kid in a way. I used to chase ants with a magnifying glass. I don't know if anybody's ever done that. It's as bad as me. But those little ants, they wanted their freedom. They didn't like it, and they would run really fast. And I noticed even with little earthworms, when I'd poke them if I was fishing, they would squirm, they would try to get away. Because it seems like we all want to have a better quality of life, and when we're hampered by anything, we want to somehow grow out of that. So it led to a great interest of mine. Now, we see that people come here to this country we call Canada because of this desire for freedom. I was talking to you, Jade, a few days ago about how you felt it's more free here. And it probably is, especially for women, I think you mentioned, than in some other places. And those of us who have been here for all of our life, though, myself included, I sense walls closing in. And there seems to be more regulations, more controls, less freedom, more taxation, more of everything that would hamper us in a way coming in. And it seems like the freedom or the lack of freedom is kind of like weeds that can grow in a garden. If we don't constantly be vigilant, they can creep back in, so the enslavement can creep back in. And I think it's very interesting phenomenon. You mentioned Donald Trump earlier. We see the phenomenon that happens when people start to push back. And it seems to be maybe not a productive pushback at times, because I think the United States election is a very interesting observation of a pushback that, to me, I liken it to a house on fire. If we're in a house, and some of us are going to choose to run this way, and some of us are going to choose to run that way, but if we still don't get out of the burning house, we could still be in trouble. So I see the Bernie Sanders and the Donald Trump as two directions, but still in the house, and still flames going up, and still two different forms of tyrants. So I often wondered, what is the solution? What is the solution to create more freedom? Humanity has tried revolutions. And revolutions, I don't know of an example of one that doesn't eventually end in another form of tyranny. Because you chase out the tyrants, in comes a bunch more tyrants. And even elections, we see, we hope most people don't get who they want, because only the majority, who's actually the minority, actually vote. And then often they're voting for who they don't want to make sure that the worst guy doesn't get in. And it never really it hasn't seemed to work. It seems to become more and more tyranny and less freedom. We even see in Canada now, there's this guy, Kevin O'Leary. He's thinking about taking the Donald Trump thing and getting on board because people want more freedom. But will he give us more freedom? I don't think so. But I could be wrong. So I ask myself, what can be done then? What can be done? And to me, I think it comes down to how we see ourselves. For example, Sabina, if somebody comes into your office and says, so what are you here? What do you say?
Financial planner?
Exactly, yeah. And Jatindra, what do you say that you are?
Send my job description, what I do.
Yes. And what do you say? So we all have our differences, don't we? We have a financial planner, we have a carpenter, we have a Christian, we have a Jew, we have a Muslim, a Hindu. And these things we see as different. Like, so I'm not Iranian. I've never been to Iran. So when there's a difference, I'm not Indian. So there's a difference there. And so often we separate ourselves by this. And there's a thing in mathematics called the lowest common denominator. People are familiar with that. We simplify our equations and we figure out what's the base minimum that we can see ourselves as. And when we begin to do that, we realize that what we are is all human beings. Right? And then, I think this is important because it's part of the solution, I think, to see ourselves in other people. So if I see you as a financial planner, I cannot see myself in you because I'm not a financial planner, I don't understand it. But if I see you as a human being, now I can see my humanity in you, and you, and you, and you. And so, this is what's common between us. And I think when we see the commonalities in ourselves, we put down our guns, we put down our harsh words, we put down our criticisms, we put down our politics, and we become friendly. And when we become friendly, we become peaceful. And when we become peaceful, we can have freedom. And this is the message behind my flag. I'm going on a long walk, and hopefully we can pass the olive branch to people, because the olive branch is a friendly gesture of connection. It's not a gesture of politics or fighting or warring. And we can accept our differences because we have at the base our similarities. So in conclusion then, what began with a dream turned into a desire and now has turned into activism of me walking a long way to spread the message of the olive branch and the peace so that we can have greater freedom. And I'll leave you with the words of the great Dr. Martin Luther King. Let freedom ring.